Just when you thought the drama was over, fans are trying to buy Neal Brown a plane. What the heck is going on? Let's talk about it on this episode of Locked On West Virginia.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in, guys. My name is Mountaineer Paul, your host as always, and this is another edition of Locked On West Virginia, brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, and that's guaranteed. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. And I would love to thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen or your last listen every single day, becoming one of the everyday people around here. And you, as you know, that's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we talk about your team every day. One of the bigger names out there in my world, where we talk about college football, somebody who has made quite a name for himself doing that. He loves talking football. Somebody I have a lot of respect for. You've probably seen him around this YouTube space somewhere. Goes by the name of Pigskin Pete. We named him Peter Bartell. What's up, man? How we doing?
Hey, how you doing? Hail WVU to everybody. Good to officially be on with it, Paul. I know we've been talking for a bit, but I
Yeah,
love the WVU. I know I speak for Mountaineer Nation as a whole. You got a locked on and a locked on host. It's stellar. So
that's what we were wanting. So I'm going to, before we get started here, um, I got to read just kind of what's going on with the situation because there has been an update. But the long and short of it is after a week of controversy, Pete or Peter, which one would you rather go by?
don't matter.
Okay, I'll just go Pete. Obviously, you know about the Neal Brown comments
Yep.
and everything that went on with that, and then we thought it had died down, and we were going to get to this game week with K-State, and then we found out yesterday there's a bunch of fans trying to crowdsource a plane for Neal Brown to fly over the stadium, and it's going to say, "Are you having fun yet?" Fire Neal Brown. And here's the update to this banner reading: "Fire Neal Brown likely won't fly during homecoming," organizer says. In a blog post on the crowdfunding site SpotFund, organizer Kurt Hurley said that a banner displaying the phrase "Are you having fun yet? Fire Neal Brown" will not likely be flown during the K-State game, but it will be because the company backed out apparently. So
Okay.
I don't know who made that happen, but I'm assuming it's probably some big people at West Virginia made that happen. He said, "I assure
Yeah.
you, I have not touched the money. It's still there. We are waiting for it to be used for an upcoming game. The banner will fly, but I won't take a cent of the money for myself. This whole mission, a mission, was simply to send a message, even without it flying yet. I believe that message has been sent," Hurley
Yeah.
says. As of Friday afternoon, $5,101 in donations. This is a circus, man.
Yeah. It's a good circus if you want Brown out, which I most people do. I don't. I have you met somebody that is a supporter inside WVU?
Even his most staunch supporters are basically out now.
Right.
And what's crazy is, and look, we get what's in front of us as far as West Virginia's 2-1 in the Big 12. If they beat Kansas State tomorrow night, and I do believe we have a good enough team to do that if he coach them to that victory.
Yeah.
You're talking about a 3-1 team in the Big 12 with Baylor, Cincinnati, and UCF coming up. So
Yeah. Yep.
what's funny is a lot of people could end up eating crow,
Right.
but it'd be great crow to eat. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So,
Hmm.
but the odds are against it, and Saturday could be yet another ranked loss,
Yeah.
and so just wanted to get your perspective since although you know a lot of us West Virginia YouTubers, podcasters, you're in this world, but you're basically an outsider. So I was curious as to what your perspective has been on just everything.
Um, I mean, I'm a Syracuse fan. That's how I was born and raised. I'm from upstate New York, so I am used to the traditional Big East. I'm 37, so as a kid, I experienced the Big East, basketball, football, etc. Therefore, I'm used to WVU being talked about, being good, being relevant, and proving their worth, right? Not just losing the big games like Penn State or Pitt the last, what, 2 years? You lost to them last year too?
We won last year, and then
Like,
we lost the year
okay,
before. So it's two of
my
the
bad.
last three
Okay,
we've lost.
okay. Sorry to bring it up. Because you're an actual football school still, even though you lost to Pitt. Pitt's nothing.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
like
We like this guy.
he, the Sweet Caroline song is fantastic. It is a good tradition, but um, he's got to be gone. I don't understand why the mediocrity is allowed to survive. Um, it, like forever, you had some legendary coaches, and now it's just like I see, but to your point, like 2-1 in conference, and if you beat Kansas State's the hurdle. You beat Kansas State, it could give you confidence to say everything's in front of us, guys. A 9-3 regular season may not. Dominoes have to fall certain ways, get you in a playoff, but those are some struggling programs that you mentioned: Baylor, Cincy, and UCF. Uh,
Right.
just it's sad because right when you guys joined the Big 12, I thought, okay, cool, Baylor or Texas and OU are top tier, and then probably WVU top of the second tier. It's never been like that, and Holgerson was the first reason, and now Neal Brown is the second. So
It's been frustrating too because obviously Holgerson in the Big East, his only year in the Big East, wins the Orange Bowl with a stacked West Virginia team
yep,
with Tavon Austin,
yep,
Bruce
yep.
Irvin was on the
You still
defense.
had it, yeah,
Yeah, Geno Smith at quarterback. And then, Stedman Bailey, who would have been a really good pro had he not got shot in the head. That was a really good football team. And then you had the transition to a Big 12 where you're the only school that has to travel like we did. And I think teams are finding out now in all leagues, whether that's the Big 10, whether that's the Big 12, and some in the SEC, because we saw just some like we saw some teams are having to go up Texas and Oklahoma and play now, like in Florida. So people are realizing this travel thing is legit.
yeah, yeah,
It's real. And unfortunately, I personally I think it's played a part, however small or big, in West Virginia's success in the Big 12.
okay,
Because you have to try to convince some of the better recruits in your area that they're never going to play at home in front of anybody. It's 6 games a year. You're not going to be anywhere near where you're from.
right. I
In the
think,
ACC,
yeah,
in the ACC, Syracuse can say you're
yeah.
going to be within 4 to 6 hours of everywhere we are, pretty much.
You think about Paul though, like all the teams that used to be in the Big East, right? That left, like Virginia Tech, Miami, West Virginia, Pitt, Syracuse, Rutgers. It affected all of us. To your point, like we are
Yeah,
all Cuse is traveling to freaking Cali for a game,
yeah,
right? And then like it's sad that I know it was about money, but we could
hmm
have had those traditional rivalries A and B, kept recruits more at home. I feel like, which Brown has done that. I'll attest to that. He's tried to recruit West
yes,
Virginia more, unlike Holgerson, who just
right,
JUCO forever. But it's still sad to me that like it's come to that. That does make sense. I mean, that to counter that though, the travel's a thing for everybody, and you pointed it out earlier on a Locked On, like the Big 12 group show, the 3-16 record for
yeah,
WVU against top 20. That's that's staggering. What
yeah,
surprises me about Brown too, to conclude on it, is he had 3 double-digit win seasons at Troy. I don't know a fan that wasn't on board when he was hired. Like how do you? It's just mind-boggling, and he's not the only one. Napier's going through the same thing at Florida. Like they get to the group of 4 at that time, group of 5, and they just or power 5, and they just can't continue it. It's just mind-boggling how. And I did like his model. Like let's get back to focusing on regional recruiting, like WVU and that pipeline. But
yeah. That's a great point, by the way. And I think, when I look at what Neal's done from a recruiting standpoint, I haven't had an issue with any of it. It actually is in line with almost every coach we've had, in that anywhere from the 30s to the 50s is
yep,
where we've always been. It's just that when you throw the portal into the mix, like a lot of developmental programs, you have to learn how to develop a different way. And I think some teams are still struggling with that. But for the most part, West Virginia was one of the first teams to hire a GM. Like they had a guy that was with the Cowboys for several years and Drew Fabianich come in and help them with the roster. And it's been big swing and misses on portal prospects, especially in the back end of the defense. For whatever reason, they've hit they most basically everywhere else they've looked at, but the back end has been a really hard sell for them. But unfortunately, can you look at what he did at Troy? You mentioned that. I wanted to bring this up when you said it. He won on the road in Lincoln at Nebraska. He won on the road at LSU with Troy.
Right. Yep.
And I've always asked myself, like, how was he able to get up for those games and win them, and a few other bigger group of five games while he was at Troy. And the only conclusion I've been able to come to is it's easy to get a team up for one game, I guess, like that.
Yeah.
When it's week after week after week of basically in the Big 12, especially, it's the same team. You're playing almost the same team every week.
Right.
There is levels to it, but like there's not a big difference between Iowa State and Kansas State as far as talent goes, or if we go up to Cincinnati and Baylor, right? Not a huge difference in talent. And you play the same team every week, and they all become fourth quarter games. And Neal, his big criticism is he plays not to lose a lot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he definitely plays not to lose. And that's the thing. Bama is another example is going through with DeBoer right now. I feel like they're no longer playing to win; they're playing to survive. And I think you got to find a coach that's going to play to win and not play to survive. To the plane statement, whether we're going to fly the plane over, I think the conclusion of that statement was correct by whoever's putting this together. The message is out there, no matter whether it happens or not.
Right.
Neal knows it. It's bad. That's almost like as or more detrimental to it than it actually happening. So
yeah, because the way it looks is likely the university's figured out who this company is. I mean, there can't be that many close within 4 or 6 hours of where we're at. Probably Pittsburgh area. You never know. I mean, you could be Ohio, but and likely they made some phone calls and said, "Hey, can you not do this? It's not going to be good for us, and we're dealing with a lot. Whatever paid them or whatever they did to make this not happen." So. We got to get to a break really quick. Thanks to Pigskin Pete for being on here right now, Peter Bartell. Make sure you go check him out at Pigskin Petey on X, and he's also got his own YouTube, which we'll talk about after the break. Up next on Locked On West Virginia, we're going to talk a little bit West Virginia basketball tonight as they begin the exhibition, and then we're going to get to those final thoughts at the third segment right before K-State. Stick around, guys. This is Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by Hims Sexual Health. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and when you want to be ready, we can perform in the bedroom. Well, Hims provides access to treatments that help you stay hard and last longer, giving you a boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Your sex life is important, so you better get busy. You don't have time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED, but through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping a foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's health care by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. It provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. The products mentioned are chewable compound products which are not approved by the verified or have any effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require online consultation with the healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate, and also restrictions apply. HIMS.com. We are back with Pigskin Pete. Thank you, Ben, for waiting on that quick break. Real quick, tell the people where they can find you at on YouTube and other ones.
So Twitter, I have a lot of fun on there. Tweet a lot. At Pigskin Petey is the handle that you can see there. I do not have a YouTube yet. Hopefully, I mean, I've actually honestly been thinking a lot about just starting something up, whether it's a few times a week or whatever. But right now, you can find me at SaturdayBlitz.com. I am an individual contributor, so I write a few articles a week for them. Recently, just as examples, I've written a few about Ryan Day, why Ohio State should not fire him, and some other stuff. And I think to relay or further that point, Paul, about the Ryan Day, right? I gave some examples of programs that declined after not only coaches being fired, but leaving for one reason or another, right? Whether they took another job, got fired, etc. And one of the like 5 or 6 examples I gave was West Virginia with Rich Rod.
Yeah.
When he left, he didn't get fired. He left for a bigger job, Michigan, and the program regressed from there. I know under Stewart, you guys had his last 3 years were 9-4. The year before that was even better, but regardless, it regressed, right? And
Yeah.
you're not the only ones. I mean, Miami went through something similar a bit before with Butch Davis, and then Coker regressed that. But like, it's just now we're sitting here, right? 15 years later, and like 8-4 is acceptable. Like, come on. I know that's what Holgerson got fired off of, but like, you guys would crush right now to do 8-4 under Neal Brown, and that's sad. Like, that's not what WVU should be. WVU should be 9-10 wins a year at least, crushing Clemson and Orange Bowls, like that kind of swag.
That's what we think, but unfortunately we get made fun of for thinking that, honestly, and people think that the Big 12 is a huge step up from what the Big East was, and I don't necessarily feel that way, but I don't buck because it just ends up offending everybody else in the conference, I don't, I think there are years like, obviously, when I look at like how Virginia Tech and Iowa State are this year, I can look back at years where Louisville and South Florida were just as good. And I think it's just because it's South Florida now and how they look now. But man, there were times when South Florida was ranked as high as number 2 in the country when the Big East.
Yep.
The biggest difference between the Big 12 and what the Big East was is were just more layups in the Big East overall. You might have UConn that was really bad one year. Maybe Syracuse was bad one year, but you guys were never a layup for us. Mm-hmm. It seemed like every time we went down there to play you guys in that dome, there was upset. Yep. It just happened a lot. And then the Schwartz-Walton Trophy means a lot to people too.
Yeah,
that's one of the trophies that I miss. Miss playing you guys.
For me, like, it's a lot of regionality. You think about the conferences right now that are still thriving, and that's the Big Ten and the SEC. The SEC is definitely, no questions asked, held on to regionality, and the Big Ten until this year held on to regionality. The ACC did not. The Big East went away. The Big 12 did not. So I think, Paul, really, like, I know when the Big East existed, right, we were like fifth best conference probably in the country to others like the ACC, Pac-12 or Pac-10 at that time, etc., SEC. But I feel like if we held ground, think about all those schools, how close they were that you just mentioned, that would have helped us to be competing present day. I mean, we had brands like you guys, Virginia Tech, Miami. I'm not going to put Syracuse in that brand group, but I think we would have been a benefactor of it.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. So, obviously, West Virginia basketball starts tonight. It actually starts here in about 5 minutes, but it'll probably be 10 before the tip-off on ESPN+. West Virginia is actually playing Charleston today, so that's going to be fun. We don't know what we're going to get from the Mountaineers this year, and as a Syracuse fan, I don't even have to ask. I know you follow basketball, right?
Yes. Yep.
You have to.
Yeah.
So West Virginia is in a spot where they turned in literally an entire roster over 12 guys. One guy returns. But, man, they've got a lot of scoring talent on this team. It's going to be fun to see how this team meshes together. Darren DeVries is probably one of the most – he was the most, in my opinion, he was the second best coach on the market. Michigan got the guy that I felt like was the best coach on the market, who had been at FIU or FAU for the past few years and made that team really good. So I feel like Darren DeVries, man, what he was able to do, and obviously bringing Tucker over, who averages over 20 points a game, two-time conference player of the year, and he's going to be good. I have a feeling that the two Illinois transfers are going to be really good. Sincere Harrison and Monty Hansberry, we're really excited about them. I've heard such great things about Hansberry. Stone comes over from Detroit. He averaged over 20 points a game. Although this is moving up almost a couple levels. It's D1, but it's Big 12 basketball, so that's an extra level. We're excited. We're going to get our first look at this team. So I'm really, really excited about it. What's the Syracuse outlook?
We're going into year 2 under our new coach because Boeheim held on 10 years too long.
Yeah, right.
But
like Hugs.
Yeah, right. No, very
Same
similar.
thing.
Yeah. So I would expect like a better year this year for us. The portal's just changed everything in college basketball, honestly. Like they did
Love
good a
Jesse
couple
Edwards.
years. Yeah. Oh, he's stellar.
Wish we'd have had him for one more year.
I know. And that's it changed that one it really hurt when we lost him. We lost like Joe Girard too to Clemson a few years ago, and
right.
early on he was really
God,
good.
he was
But
good
again,
last year.
yeah, and like that's to your point. Like Boeheim just held on way too long.
Yeah.
So the new coach is in year 2, and I think we'll be better. This is a really big year for us. I am not sold personally on our AD overall, John Wildhack. He held on to Dino Babers 5 years too long on football. So I hope this is the right coaching hire, but we'll see. I mean, for WVU, I think you're in a really good place. I think this. I mean, he kept Drake a name. Drake was sliding a bit like 10 years ago, and he put him back on the map where Drake belongs. I mean, back-to-back conference titles, NCAA tournament appearances. That's all you can ask for. It's all you can ask for. So
I saw something yesterday, and that's another thing I wanted to get your clarification on. What was the thing I saw with Boeheim and McNamara yesterday reuniting?
I did not see that. I've been
Let me
stuck
see
in
if I can
football
find it really
world.
quick. Gotcha. Here it is right here. Okay. Jim Boeheim reunites with Siena coach Jerry McNamara. The relationship
Okay.
between Boeheim and McNamara goes back 2 decades. And okay, let's see. What's it say right here? Maybe he just okay. I just read the headline. Maybe he just
Like they met up or
it
something.
says right here they reunited recently in the Capital Region at an event talking about basketball and their relationship. Okay. I thought maybe he was a consulting or went in there to
Yeah, I
own.
gotcha.
There's a
Pulled a
lot.
Calhoun and came back somewhere.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what
no,
I
I
thought.
know McNamara. It was cool to see him on the sideline for Cuse for at least a decade, I feel like, and now he's
Yeah,
second year head
yeah.
coach at Siena.
But he had that chin strap.
Yeah,
That was back when chin straps were
yeah.
in.
The good thing about I like Syracuse's options right now, right? Because if you think about it, when Boeheim was there 10 years ago, 15 years ago, Mike Hopkins had been an assistant for 20 plus years. He played for Boeheim, and he was the coach in waiting. Well, he was sick of waiting, so he went to Washington as a head coach, and I thought this is great because he's either going to do really good at Washington, and then when Boeheim retires or whatever, they'll just insert him, and then we'll be good. He sucked, so they didn't insert him, but that's on Washington's hands, right? And now you're going to have the
Right.
same thing going on, I feel like, with McNamara. If the current head coach doesn't work out, fine, Autry. And then and he was a former player too, but we bring in McNamara. I like that we have kind of that alumni option right now, but not to
It's always
hijack
good to
a
have.
Mountaineer podcast, but
And,
yeah,
and they can either spur you on to great heights or they can flop. You never know what's going to happen.
right.
Up next on Locked On West Virginia, guys, we're going to have a shorter segment so we can all get to the basketball game. We're going to give some final thoughts on before K-State. I'm going to ask Pete what's up, what he thinks about the game. Maybe get some game keys. Stick around, guys. It's Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right, FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. And as I look right now, it is 2.5 points It's a really close spread between K-State and West Virginia. Let's see where the money goes here in the last 24 hours before the game kicks off. Make sure you go to FanDuel to keep updated. And we are back with Pigskin Petey. So obviously this is a big game, the biggest game in Neal Brown's career today, just like last week was in a lot of ways. West Virginia is what my dad would say. He's in the cat. They're almost in the cat. If they win this game, they could be in the proverbial catbird seat. And you look at the top of the conference. There's a lot of one-loss teams. Let me pull it up really quick. Just take really 2 seconds to pull this up. Okay. The 12 following statements. All right, so looking at the Big 12, you got BYU at 6-0, Iowa State's 6-0, 3-0, both 3-0 in the conference. Texas Tech is 4-0 in the conference, which is wild.
Wow.
Arizona State 4-0, Kansas State's 3-0, Colorado 2-1, Cincinnati's 2-1, West Virginia's. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing for conference. 2-1 West Virginia, 2-1 Cincinnati, 2-1 Colorado, 2-1 Kansas State, 2-1 Arizona State, Texas Tech, Iowa State, and BYU were all 3-0 in the conference. So, and you look at this, obviously if West Virginia gets by K-State, the rest of their schedule lines up. The rest of their schedule is UCF, Cincinnati, Baylor, and Texas Tech, who's now 5-1 and 3-0 in the conference. So obviously that's the toughest remaining game outside of Kansas State. But getting over Kansas State, listen, they got a shot still. As a fan, I can't help but at least be a little bit hopeful.
Yeah, I hear you. My outlook on Kansas State, though, is not great for you all. Not gonna lie.
Right.
They're a really good team. Chris Kleiman's a great coach.
They
And
are.
DJ Giddens is the running back that he's doing the production that CJ Donaldson should have been doing the last 2 years. Unfortunately, and it's not a knock on CJ. I'm going to knock Neal Brown again because that's what it is. I mean, CJ Donaldson to me is a running back that should be in the Heisman conversation, and he's not. And that's a problem.
Did you watch Iowa State last week?
I did a little bit of it. Yep.
You see the first drive of the game?
Yep.
14 plays, all on the ground, right? You scored, chew up 8 minutes of the clock. And then, unfortunately, they tied up on a broken play, go up by 3, and then all of a sudden, Garrett Green drops back to pass 70% of the time the rest of the game. I didn't feel like it was out of reach so far that we needed to become a passing team, and I felt like we could have definitely controlled that game via clock control, and it just didn't work out that way. And I get it. I'm not a professional coach, and I'm not a coordinator, but that's been the success that has led to many of Neal Brown's wins. It's getting more first downs than the other team. Anytime he's got 25 or more, he's like a 90-something% win percentage, which is a lot of first downs. But, clock control, first downs, et cetera, has been what has really driven Neal to wins. West Virginia, I think the air raid in him, he can't. He has, like against Oklahoma State, they ran it 60-something times.
Yeah.
But just whenever we need a win, it seems like he gets too antsy or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like you got a horse in that backfield, and that horse is gone, by the way, after this year.
Two.
Donaldson's, yeah. I forget the name of the compliment,
Jaheim
but
White.
Okay, thank you. 2 years ago, Paul, I remember just seeing a thing on social media with Neal Brown recruiting at a local high school after a loss. I think it was a Friday night you had lost, or a Thursday night. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, why is he even out there? Like, doesn't he know he's a dead man walking, so to speak? And he's still there. Like, I don't get it.
He won 9 games against a really weak schedule last year. And it's taken me a while to admit that because I wanted to believe that the schedule was going to propel us to larger heights. And I was hoping he was the proverbial Frank Beamer, right? Or Mark Stoops at Kentucky. You just take 4 or 5 years sometimes to get what you need. You learn a lot. And I do feel like Neal's learned a lot. And I actually wouldn't be shocked if he was successful at another job someday because he gets literally, this is no lie. Now press conferences have become an Achilles heel for him, but it used to be he gets every single thing right but the on the field product. The culture has been right. The press conferences for the most part, everybody's loved him. Culture inside the locker room, I don't mention that, but like from a player standpoint, has been excellent. He's great with families. He's great with team building. He's great in almost every setting, and I mean elite. And it just
Right.
whatever it is on the field has eroded to the point to where nobody cares about anything else now. To the point to where it's brass tacks.
Yep. I think
It's wild.
like the opening games of the year, like remember Penn State, how exciting that game was and how much hype there was and all that. I mean, it was so bad Penn State wouldn't even play you at night because they were scared. But
Right.
I mean, he just deflates it so quickly. Like what could be a really good, beyond a good time, a good team. Um, so to say that, man, it was just wild when he came out and said what he said about, oh, did you have a good time? Like it's like telling your 5-year-old, yeah, you didn't get to ride the ride, but you had fun at the park. Like this is college football. This is WVU. Like no, 6-6 is not a good time. 7-5
No.
is not a good time.
No. We'd be happy with 8 wins in some years,
Yep.
but like
Yep.
it's okay. But like, like listen, it's year 6. We should have competed for a Big 12 championship at least twice, right?
You're
3
playing
times.
Conference USA teams essentially, right? Like Cincy, UCF, those are all like I get it, they're
Yeah,
Big 12 now, but they're not like Big 12 like Kansas State and all those teams. Like
right. There are some easier, but I mean the thing is those teams have now been in the league for a couple of years. Their recruiting
right.
is catching up,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those names aren't necessarily those Conference USA teams anymore. Like if you look at Cincinnati this year, they're starting to get physical. Like they run the ball really well. UCF was doing that, and I don't know what happened, but that's what they were doing. They're catching up, and it's not going to be to the point to where you've got more athletes than them anymore. Probably starting next year, really, with the portal too. It's easier to fill those holes. So. All right, guys. Christopher Miller said he just donated to the flag cause, so that's wild. West Virginia basketball is about to tip off, so we got to run. Pete, tell everybody where they can find you, man.
So you can check out my articles at SaturdayBlitz.com or on X at PigskinPD. My handle's right there on the page. But yeah, always having fun on X, mostly talking about college football, sometimes a little bit of NFL, but post my dogs a lot. I think you probably hear one in the background. But um,
Yeah.
good stuff. I appreciate you having me on, Paul. Thank you.
Hey,
Hail
no problem.
WVU.
Thanks, guys. And before we go, as always, got to give a shout out, right? So thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen. We love and appreciate that you've done that. For your last listen or your first listen, whichever order it is you do that, make Locked On Big 12 your second listen of the day. Drake Toll leads the conversation, conference realignment news, and he pulls no punches when it comes to covering every team in the Big 12. Find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. All right, guys, let's go watch those Mountaineers beat Charleston tonight in basketball. Good luck to the Syracuse Orange this year. Hope they do well. And thanks to Pete for coming on. I'll see you guys tomorrow after the game, after a West Virginia win. This episode's over. We are out.